Committee on Gang Violence and Youth Development will now come to order. We'll commence the committee as we do not have a quorum, so we'll commence the committee as a subcommittee. The items on the agenda, I'll announce items numbers 3 and 4 will be continued to the meeting scheduled for May 1st, as we'll get reports from the mayor's office on those two items on that day. So we now move to item number 1.
Item number 1, Los Angeles Fire Department to report relative to the LAFD's Fire Explorer and Youth Development Programs and First Responder Street Survival Safety Training Program for Battalion 13 staff.
Thank you. Copy of the slideshow. Do you have any more copies of this?
Sir? Yes, sir, they do.
Okay, good. I have my copy.
He's trying.
Ready when you are.
Okay. Good morning, Council Member Cardenas. My name is Kwame Cooper. I'm a member of the Los Angeles Fire Department. I'm here with my two colleagues, Chief Greg Raynar and Akil Bashir, who is also a member of the Los Angeles Fire Department. We're here representing Chief Barry with regard to a presentation about the Fire Department's Youth Development Program. And we're certainly happy to be invited as we see youth as an important element of our whole service delivery system.
Now, Mr. Cooper,
Yes, sir.
you told me what your colleague's title is, but not yours.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir. Battalion Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to start by saying that although it's sometimes considered non-traditional, particularly in the fire service, to view firefighters as proactive in the area of involvement in social issues, that under the leadership of Chief Barry, we see this as something that's really essential to providing safety to our community, both in an emergency and a non-emergency capacity. And in this regard, when it affects our youth, we take that as a high priority. The men and women of the LA Fire Department are committed as we talk about community-based fire stations and fire stations being accessible to service delivery to the people that we serve. We're committed to expand that in ways that's consistent with the leadership of the City of Los Angeles. What I'd like to do is begin my presentation by just talking a little bit about what our goals are with regard to gang intervention prevention, but more importantly, where we see we can assist this committee. There are several goals that are listed here, and one of the things that we talk about is the importance of establishing partnerships. As firefighters, we know that the strength of what we do is based on the people that we serve and the relationship we have with them. And so we see that as essential when we start talking about doing business with members in the community, non-traditional organizations and or individuals that are committed to improving the quality of life in communities, that we as firefighters see that it's important for us to have relationships with everybody. We also think that it's really important for us to be able to target our services to issues and trends that are affecting the neighborhood. Maybe not firefighters directly, but at some point we end up being a part of fixing the problem. And so what we want to do is make sure that we are involved on the front end of social issues as they begin to negatively affect communities. And then the other thing that we really want to emphasize is the importance of providing the proper training for our first responders. One of the things that we have been able to do over the past couple of years is develop a relationship with Maximum Force Enterprise, which Akil Bashir is the president of that particular organization, which has a long-standing history, some 25 or 30 years of providing service. And so by working with Maximum Force Enterprise, particularly in the area of first responder training, it helps to better equip our firefighters with strategic and tactical considerations when we respond to some of these incidents. And we also do that in collaboration with the gang interventionists and the Los Angeles Police Department. So as we expand what we're doing in terms of service delivery, we want to make the council, this committee, aware of that and look toward whether or not that helps to fit in with the things that you're looking for. The other thing I really want to get specifically into is what Chief Greg Raynar is going to talk about, which is our youth development program, or what we call our Fire Explorer program. And he'd like to spend about 10 minutes with you, just kind of giving you an overview. And after that, we'll have Akil Bashir provide an overview about maximum force, and then we'll open ourselves up for any questions.
Okay.
Good morning, sir. My name is Greg Raynar. I'm a battalion chief in Battalion 15.
With an R, Raynar?
R-E-Y-N-A-R. Currently, I'm assigned to a field assignment in the San Fernando Valley, serving the communities of Northridge, Chatsworth, Granada Hills. One of my part-time jobs is to serve as the department's youth development coordinator for Chief Berry. At his pleasure, I authored the response from Chief Berry to your honorable board with regards to our Explorer and youth development programs, and can speak to that today if necessary. What I'd like to do is provide you just a very brief overview of our 2 youth development programs that we currently run with the department, and answer any questions for you. As you're well aware, I'm sure, the youth development programs of the Los Angeles Fire Department weren't designed specifically to serve as anti-gang intervention or prevention programs. However, they surely assist in directing youth towards positive alternatives to gang violence and to gang participation. They're run primarily by department members that volunteer their time, literally hundreds of hours every year. They provide early education and career guidance for youth in becoming LAFD members. They also provide some very important benefits, and that's that they provide youth with positive adult role models, our firefighters and paramedics. They provide peer support, they teach life skills, and promote personal rewards of public service, which we think are very valuable for the community, also for the city of Los Angeles. Currently, we have 18 Explorer posts serving approximately 300 youth. We do that with 38 post advisors that volunteer their time, like I said, that are members of the Los Angeles Fire Department. The Explorer posts range geographically all the way from the north end of the San Fernando Valley all the way down to the far south end of San Pedro in Councilmember Hahn's district. Requirements for the Explorer post currently to be an Explorer with the department are you have to be 14 to 20 years of age and have at least completed 8th grade. We have a number of requirements for participation to remain in good standing. Some of them are that we have a set of core values and that you must obey laws and exhibit behavior that's prudent and reasonable. We have grooming standards. We do require good grades, a C average, and that those grades are maintained with our assistance, and a commitment, that it requires a certain level of commitment week in and week out to be an Explorer, and with attending meetings and also with doing some of the good work in the community. I know that you've had the opportunity to attend graduations in the past and seeing our Explorers, both young men and women, very positive role models within their community. We'd like to increase our participation there. Latest addition to the Los Angeles Fire Department Explorer program is the advent of Crew 3, which is a wildland Explorer post out in the San Fernando Valley located at Fire Station 88. It's also run by volunteers with the fire department who have previous experience with U.S. Forest Service and California Department of Forestry. And what Crew 3 does is they provide a wildland firefighting and forestry experience to our youth, specifically in the area of the wildland and forestry versus a traditional fire service in our communities and in the urban setting. That's one program. Our second program is a very important program for us. It's actually called the FIRE program. And what the FIRE program stands for, the acronym is Fire Service Instruction, Recruitment, and Education. Currently, the FIRE program is being offered in conjunction with the LA Harbor College and East Los Angeles College. What it requires is it requires high school age students all the way into beginning community college to participate in a program that's run by Los Angeles Firefighters. What we do is we provide instruction. We utilize firefighting tools and manipulative training. We provide academic classroom presentations. We use official LAFD materials. If you're following along, sir, I'm on page 8. We feel that the fire programs...
Hold on a second. One of the pictures has LA Valley College. You have a program going on at LA Valley College, or that was just
just the front slide. Previously, it has been offered at LA Valley College. In fact, we've offered this program at 8 community colleges in the past. Currently, however, it's limited basically by available funding and also by the volunteers we have available to offer this program. The program runs 8 weeks, 8 consecutive Saturdays, ending in a graduation. It does require a significant commitment because these cadets are reporting at 7 o'clock in the morning and they're there all day until 4 p.m. So to run that program for 8 consecutive weeks, obviously a significant commitment for volunteers in the fire department after their normal full-time jobs. Currently, though, we are running it with a staff at 2 colleges. And,
Which colleges again?
it's at East Los Angeles College and at LA Harbor College. LA Harbor College program right now is serving 99 youth, approximately 40 are female. We're in our 4th Saturday. Anticipate that our graduation is going to occur on or about May 24th. East Los Angeles program is 1 week behind the LA Harbor program. East Los Angeles College, actually, we're providing an avenue and a location to run the program this year. It's actually happening at our regional training center at Frank Hoskins Memorial Training Center, where I know you've attended graduations in the past. The reason why we're doing that is that East LA College has a construction problem right now, so we're offering also our location to provide this program also, not just the staff and the program materials, but also location. Fire department feels that working with youth in our youth development programs serves an important avenue for providing recruitment efforts to recruit quality female and male candidates. We feel that the fire service is actively recruiting firefighters. Obviously, competition is very stiff and tremendous. The key to success, becoming a firefighter or paramedic, is early preparation and direction and education. Both the fire program and the Explorer program rely on several tenets. One of them is discipline and leadership. We provide our youth an opportunity to be in an environment where they're working with community members and also with firefighters and paramedics. We teach the realization and the importance of discipline and leadership, and that we utilize this within the fire department, and that really teamwork is one of our pillars. We begin to teach the youth how important it is to work as a team. In these programs, they're tasked with a number of learning opportunities to work with our tools and equipment, to work as a team together as a member of an engine or a truck company, and they begin to realize how important teamwork is. Very positive benefit for them, also a very good positive benefit obviously for the department. Talked about the program and how it runs over a consecutive period of 8 weeks. Culminates in a graduation. If you're following along on page 11, there's a picture of one of the graduations. I believe you may have, I may have a photo of you actually providing some resolutions and some graduate certificates at this ceremony. This occurred about 2 years ago. In our last fire program, we did have 40% of the cadets were females. We feel that obviously our female participation is increasing. Obviously a non-traditional career, I think we would all agree, for a women that's changed dramatically in the last 10 years to where now it is obviously an accepted career for females. We have 2 additional programs that we assist with that are not considered really our primary youth development programs, the Explore program or the Fire program. These 2 auxiliary programs, one of them is located at Banning High School. In conjunction with the LA Unified School District, we've provided alumni of Banning High School the opportunity to return to the high school to assist in teaching, motivating, inspiring youth that are considered at risk by the school staff. We do this in conjunction with the physical education program, and by our participation there, we've obviously had an impact, positive impact at the school and also within the community. And then also at James Monroe High School, where we have our Macomb Fire Academy. The Fire Academy obviously was developed as a charter school following a tragedy with one of our helicopters crashing and our loss of Michael Macomb. The academy is named after him, and we do assist the Macomb Fire Academy now currently with volunteers and also with support logistically. In response to your report and your request for operational budget considerations, page 14, what I've done is reproduce information that was located in our report. Currently, our operational budget for all youth development programs within the LAFD is $100,000. The $100,000 is a portion of our HRDC funds. At this time, for calendar year 2007-2008, I expect to expend $96,000 of the $100,000. Any funds that are unused are returned, obviously, to the general fund through the HRDC. Also, when it comes to providing volunteers for our programs, because we do have a fire department that requires constant staffing and that we maintain our staffing on ambulances and fire trucks, we have registered adult leaders that act as the leaders and mentors for our youth. The participation of these mentors at times requires them to go ahead and hold meetings while they're on duty. The operational budget allows us the opportunity to fill behind that member so that he or she can provide the guidance to the youth at the meetings while maintaining service to the community, so there is no negative impact to the communities that we serve. In conclusion, I truly believe, working on the front lines of our youth development programs, that our youth programs will continue to provide effective alternatives within our communities and be positive outreach.
Okay. You mentioned something about they have to be, or in one of your programs, have to be 14 to 18 years old and have at least completed the 8th grade. Now, for them to be in that program, the city of LA, I think accumulated by the police department and it held on to by the police department and the city attorney's office, they can actually register somebody as a gang member. If somebody were to bring it to your attention that one of your students is on that list of 38,000 or 40,000 of those names, for all I know, my name's on the list, for no good reason, other than I got pulled over one time, some cop decided to fill out a card and make the idiotic, unrealistic, disingenuous assumption that I was a gang member. Nobody's ever been able to get off that list to date. If somebody were to bring it to your attention that Joe Ramirez, who's in your program, the kid's right over there, what does that do to his status if they say he's on our gang list?
Obviously, just to correct you, sir, our age requirements right now are 14 years old and have completed 8th grade all the way to the age of 20 years old.
Yeah.
In your theoretical example, if we had it brought to my attention that one of our members of our Explorer post was a gang member, at this time there's no requirement for him to or her to be dismissed from our program. In fact, what we have done is we do have at-risk youth. We do have youth that are troubled, that come from single-parent homes or foster homes, and we've really provided a great opportunity to provide a good positive adult role model and an avenue for that person to be directed away from negative influences. An Explorer with a gang affiliation would not be removed from our Explorer program. In fact, what it would do, it would be an opportunity for us to try and provide better leadership and maybe a positive alternative to the gang affiliation.
So when you accept somebody into the program, it's based on the activity, the actual actions of that individual, not labels of that individual.
Absolutely,
correct?
that would be correct.
Okay, because there's a big distinction with people who get it. It sounds like your program gets it. Most Americans don't get it. They don't understand that just by accusing somebody of being a gang member or saying that a person dresses a certain way, therefore they're not worthy of our support or our attention, otherwise known as throwaway people. And I just wanted to make it clear as to whether or not your program deals with dismissing people because of labels rather than their individual actions.
Sir, I would say unequivocally, I would agree with you not. The only reason right now currently an Explorer could be dismissed from the program that I'm coordinating is because of his or her activities while being
in the program
at the fire station serving as an Explorer.
Mm-hmm. Or I noticed as well, you want to make sure they're doing well in school and things
Absolutely.
of that nature, right? It's
Absolutely.
not like they can say, well, I don't want to go to school anymore, but my life is showing up on Saturdays, right? They have to have that balance. They have to show that you're not saying just because you may want to be a firefighter someday doesn't mean that you don't have to go to school.
Yes, sir, and we are providing leadership in each one of our Explorer posts where our participants are bringing their report cards, and when they do have difficulties maintaining that borderline C average, my firefighters are actually helping them with their homework. So you need to understand, I have very, very good adults that are leading our programs in each one of the fire stations we're serving. They're very, very committed and dedicated to our program. In fact, my post advisors, I would say probably 95% of them are returning to the program as an adult leader now because they were an Explorer. We've been offering youth programs, as far as I know, for at least 40 years plus. the Explorer program has been in existence quite a long
Okay.
time. So.
I'm going to ask you a question you might not know the answer to, but I need to ask this question. Is it fair to say that it's possible that today there are firefighters in good standing who are part of your firefighter force who at one time in the past may have been a gang member? I'm not asking for names. I ask you, and I'll be careful and I'll word my question carefully. Is it possible that a firefighter today that is in good standing, who's in your force, could have been a gang member prior to becoming a firefighter? There's only one answer, gentlemen.
It's yes.
Yeah, and so,
Unless you've been weeding that out.
No,
And you know
no,
what I'm
and-
saying? And you just told me that it's who that individual is today when they start the process. It's who that individual chooses to be on a day-to-day basis from that point on forward. So I'm not with your department, so I want you to answer the question. Akil just answered the question. He doesn't even have a microphone.
yeah, and so when you ask the question, is it possible? Sure, absolutely, it's possible. And that's only as good as the work of the background investigators and the extent of the individual's
And like
involvement.
I'm not asking for names. It's not
Absolutely.
my business, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm not hiring people to be in your force.
Yes,
But the reason why I ask you that is because there just might be people in this room or people listening to this hearing who actually think because I was a gang member or because I am a gang member and I want to be a firefighter, I could never be a firefighter. If that person assumes that, are they right or are they wrong?
I would say that they're wrong.
Okay.
And again, because we deal with youth like this all the time, Mr. Councilman, it depends on the extent, to the extent of their involvement, to the extent of their influence. And that's where we as firefighters get to weigh in on our influence with that youth to create alternatives for them. Of course, the background process is exactly what it is, and that's going to go in the direction that it goes to based on the extent of that investigation. But because someone has had an affiliation with gang members, even at the point of them applying, does not exclude them from the possibility of being a firefighter.
But once they are in one of your programs, if they want to stay in your program, they better understand that if they're going to be engaging in negative activity in their community just because they are around gangs or were a gang member at the time that they applied, they need to understand that they're going to have to move away from that and immerse themselves in the positive activities like what you're doing and go to school and do their homework and do all those things.
Yes, sir.
Correct?
And also, we also teach them that they have a choice, and they have some viable choices, and they have individuals, both male and female, that's willing to mentor them and stick with them along the way as long as they continue in that positive direction. And we have results.
So actually, your program provides an hour-to-hour, day-by-day, week-by-week, month-by-month alternative to other activities that youth with a lot of time on their hands might be engaged in. So this actually occupies their time, helps them grow in a positive way, and actually takes away some of their time that possibly could be used for other things.
Yes, sir. Yes. I understand the question and where you're going with if we have current firefighters that might have had previous gang affiliations. Obviously, the Los Angeles Fire Department doesn't, do the hiring per se. Personnel department doesn't, and I'm not familiar with, what would disqualify a member. Obviously, that's a personnel department issue. Is it conceivable? Absolutely. It's possible.
How many firefighters do you have on the force today?
Approximately 3,000.
About 3,000.
Yes, sir.
I would venture to say that there's at least one person who was involved or affiliated with gangs before becoming a firefighter. And I could probably venture to say that that person is no longer engaged or involved in those kinds of activities. They're now introduced to a different lifestyle, and it sounds like that old lifestyle is long gone. I appreciate your ability and willingness to carefully and appropriately answer that question honestly, because I ask that question of many people who come before me, and a lot of people avoid answering the question, so I appreciate it. And I
Yes, sir.
appreciate your willingness to understand what I'm getting at. I really appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
At this point, with your permission, we'd like to continue with the second portion of our presentation. And what we'll do is, as we transition to introduce our next speaker, who I believe you've already met, Akil Bashir, who's also a member of the LA Fire Department, a 28-year member. His firm, Maximum Force, specializes
By the
in-
way, I've
Yes,
known
sir.
Akil for many years, and he has never told me what his day job is. I just happened to find out a couple weeks ago. So he was a masked man for a little while.
Yes. Well, Chief Barry is very happy to have a partnership, both from programs in the past, but currently in the present, with Maximum Force for the work that they provide in communities for at-risk youth, and then also for a current first responder pilot program that we're doing in South LA and in the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw area. So at this point, I'd like to introduce Akil. He'll walk you through his slides, and at that point, if there's any questions after that, we'll be happy to take them.
Good morning, council member. Always a pleasure to come before you and everybody else,
see you.
Mike. Let me, and I think your questions was very pertinent. You know my history, but for the sake of those that don't, I've been with the department 28 years, council member, but I've also been doing gang intervention, violence prevention work for over 40 years. And one of the reasons I went to the fire department is because I had to be able to get paid because the street work was not paying me, realistically. But more importantly, I have to applaud the LAFD because they have been instrumental in trying to bridge exactly what you're referring to. I think our program, gets more to the point of what your question was referring to, and that is dealing with the extremely at-risk youth and high-risk youth. And when we created a collaboration with the LA Fire Department, it was with the pretext that Maximum Force Enterprises, through our youth developmental programs, would be able to target some of those more at-risk individuals that historically the department was not dealing with. And that's what our programs specifically are designed to do. We also have another arm that we work with the LA Fire Department with, and that is the empowering of the LA fire persons. We have just graduated a class of 20 individuals. We have taught the LAFD as far back as 1995. We're getting ready to do another teaching program with them as of next month. And the whole concept is to develop the ability for firefighters to understand, interpret, handle, manage, and control interactions related to gang situations specifically, as well as violence in general. One of the things that we're also attempting to do is create and certify a team of gang interventionists who study and work with the same protocol that the LAFD does, similar to what the LAPD has done in creating liaisoning between gang interventionists in the street, the concept being the fire department having a team of individuals that they have certified, first time ever certification that they just brought into fruition, but having the ability to contact members of the community when the fire department is faced with certain precarious positions that they can't handle. Referring back to the youth programs, if you look through our packet, you'll see the different elements of the youth programs that we currently instruct. Our programs, we do have the programs that deal with non-high-risk youth, but we are known for tertiary high-risk youth. We're known for dealing with gang members, and that's why I smiled at the pretext of your question. Yes, there are members on the fire department that have been involved with gangs. The fortunate thing, and I think what both Chief Kwame and Chief Raynard was trying to get to, if they have felonies, it's almost going to be impossible for them to get on the fire department. But we have gang members who don't have felonies who have been put into the rank and file. We've had numerous of those individuals come through our program who are currently firefighters. At this point. Same thing with the LAPD. But to give you a breakdown of the program, we have extremely an empowerment aspect to the program. What we specifically do is we teach survival, life skills, and critical debriefing. We also teach, more importantly, the interface with street interactions. We teach the youth that come into our program not just how to theoretically avoid gang membership, but we get into the actual mechanics of the culture of gang membership, teaching them the wherewithal, how to to manage it, how to look at it. We actually have individuals that come in the different sets, and they will instruct our youth in terms of the do's and don'ts. We actually go to the community because our operation is in the street. We are gang intervention specialists. We have access and licenses to operate in these given communities that we go in. So because of those contacts, we can bring the youth in our program and take them in these given communities, have them dialogue and interface with the gang members. And then we have the flip side, the professional side. We can take them right back to the fire stations and teach them and instruct them in the consequential reverse side of that. This is how you would operate with structure. This is how you would operate with discipline. So we work in the best of both worlds. Real quickly, going through the packet, you'll see the different elements of our program. We have the BUILD program, which is a co-ed program. That program is predicated on a victory journal, 35 lesson plans. These kids are gone through extreme structure and order. It is a program that has been in 13 of the LA Unified School Districts, and we're in, LA Unified Schools. We're currently in 5 right now. We instructed and developed a safe passage program that is currently being used by the city of Los Angeles now. Again, and let me really reinforce, we're training specialists. That's what we do. That's what we're known for. And we do have a training academy that has been in operation for over 35 years. Our youth program, if we flip, you'll see the level of discipline, and I'm on page 3. I'm going to flip through this real quick. We stress the academic overview. We have collaborations not only with gang intervention specialists, which we are, and not only violence intervention professional. We will bring LAPD, we will bring fire department, we'll bring whatever the situation calls for related to that group of individual youth we're dealing with. If you flip the page, we deal with all ethnicities. Our program is, for the most part, predicated for the middle school, but we do work and operate in elementary, and we do work and operate in high schools. We also instruct teachers, and we do comprehensive teacher training. So many of them do not know how to interface with the young adults as well as the gang members. If you continue, you look on page 6, we actually take our youth through simulated scenarios. What we mean by that is they will go through simulated drive-bys. They will go through simulated gang interfacings in terms of entry and exit. They will go through attacks in the street. If you do not and cannot give them the effective ability to reduce and manage their fear, I don't care what you bring on in terms of structure, order, or academically, it will not get in. Some of our kids do not and cannot get to school. Some of them can't get home, and then we have one of the components which is so important, council member, and that is the critical debriefing and the impact sessions. We have to deprogram how these youngsters are thinking. You're not going to come in there and say, here you are, you can come into the fire department, you can come into the police department, we want you upright, standing citizens. If you do not program the thinking process, we've got generational members that have been in gang families for 3 and 4 generations. We got fathers, grandmothers, and grandfathers that these youngsters have seen on an ongoing basis. So many of these youngsters go home to a mama that's been on crack for the last 20 years, to a daddy they never saw. Some of them are taking care of their siblings. So we really have to understand the culture and the mechanics, as you well know because you've been in this for so long, in terms of how we deal with that populace. But again, by having the fire department counterbalance, we're able to show the constructive side of what they are not often able to see. Let me finish this packet real quick for the sake of time. Again, our critical debriefing sessions are down there on page 7. We have 2 unique programs outside of the BUILD program. We have a program called FIRM, Fathers Involved in Refining Males. That is a program specifically targeted for manhood intensification training, young men who do not have fathers in the community, which is one of the major elements in terms of gang membership. You've got to give a model of structure through a young boy, and if you don't, he's going to grab onto whatever structure he finds, and unfortunately in most of these communities, that's usually a negative element that he attaches himself to. Flip side, we have our female program called Up Front. So often the young females are neglected. There's such a heavy concentration on males, but the females are neglected. On the fire department, we have a real good comprehensive force of female firefighters, but females are far more dangerous than males in the gang environment. Even though they don't have the equivalency in terms of numbers, they're more vicious, they're more violent, and they do more destruction. And they cannot be left alone out there by themselves. Hence the reason we started that specific program. program. We have Safe Escape, Build. We teach the individuals, again, how to get out of situations. Safe Escape is kidnapping, et cetera. In our program, it's an extremely structured program, council member. They go through paydays every month. They go through a graduation process. They go through certification process. So they're well educated and structured when they leave the program. We also have one other element that we work heavily with the fire department on, and that is community survival training. One of the key elements in these communities, these besieged communities of violence, nobody teaches a community how to actually deal with that violence. You will have your interventionists in there, you have your police department, you'll have your community police, but if you're not teaching specific tools, tactics, and strategies in terms of how the community deals with the interface of violence, you defeat the purpose. And so with the community survival training, we will go into a targeted community, we will establish certain key risk factors, and then we will develop a comprehensive training predicated on those risk factors from an assessment form that that community has given us. So what the point is, we try to universally and holistically deal with all aspects of the violence, and it's much bigger than gang violence. Gang violence is just an offset of societal violence. So if you're not dealing with the whole progression of violence across the board, you defeat the purpose. That's what we attempt to do with all the programs. That's what our relationship with the fire department is. Lastly, we're getting ready to do, again, an intensive training with the fire personnel so they would be more responsive and reflective to gang membership in the given communities that they find themselves in, as well as the certifying process of, again, the gang intervention specialist being able to understand exact protocol in terms of how the fire department operates. Now what happens is the ex-gang members, who I really hate to use that term because it's an oxymoron, but the members that are dealing with violence, they have a much more respected asset overview from the fire department, because the fire department sees value in them because they know they're trained, they know they have protocol, they know they understand their procedure, as well as the fire department seeing a much more responsive relationship with those intervention workers because of the simple fact that they know those intervention workers bring something constructive to the table, as opposed to just saying, we left the set 10 years ago and we're specialists. So with that said, I'm through.
Thank you. And how long has the BUILD program been going on?
The BUILD program is a 501c3. It's been going on for now 17 years. And we have actually dealt with currently about 7,200 youth have been through that program. We have doctors that have been through that program, police officers, and the reason I laughed again at your question, we do have a couple of firefighters that have been through that program, and a couple of school teachers.
Now, what's BUILD's connection, the program BUILD, the connection with fire department?
Outstanding question. One of the things that we're attempting to do under Chief Berry's leadership and under Chief Raynar, who happens to run that program, excuse me, we're looking at targeting certain explorer programs that are in targeted areas that deal with a lot of gang violence, and they're looking for the possible modification of that Explorer program to be able to interface and add specific solutions to the violence that's going on in that given area. And also, one of the things that the fire department does counterbalancing is they will send selected members that come through their fire department ranks, either Viva through a mother, through a business owner, et cetera. Here, we bring this youth over here to you because we know the fire department, et cetera. If it's out of their league to handle, they will flip that youth over to my organization, and we will take them in and do what we need to do with them. So we create that liaison to where we're trying to fulfill both worlds.
And how long has that relationship been going on?
Just started.
A month, a year, 2 years?
No, it started actually. No, I take that back. It started back in '95 when we actually started the training out of Fire Station 68, but we weren't able to continue that relationship because I was in a severe accident and I was out of action for about 3 years. So it started in '95. It went for about 6 months. Then I was out, and it just resumed with the current training we did and the 20 gang interventionists we just certified, which was 3 weeks ago.
So it was out for, what,
It was out for, totally, I was down for 3 years, and another 3 years, it was down for 6 years.
Okay.
They still had the Explorer programs and everything, but our relationship was down for about 6 years.
Okay. We need to make more of you.
Well, thank you for the
we-
compliment.
We need programs like this to continue, with all due respect, beyond individuals, and I know you understand that. But with that comes the infrastructure and commitment beyond individuals. So that's part of our responsibility too, to make sure that good programs are fortified to the point where they can survive setbacks like individuals being out, et cetera. Okay.
In closing, what I'd like to share is on behalf of Chief Berry, and I want to reaffirm under his leadership, his commitment to really be a part of the leadership of this city, of electeds and also organizations and individuals that's involved in addressing this particular issue. We think that it's really, really important as firefighters that when in fact social issues, economic issues that are affecting communities that we live in as firefighters, that we spend about 3/4 of our life in those fire stations over a 30, 35-year career, that we can no longer ignore problems when they are developing. So we see this as an opportunity to use our influence and whatever else is necessary to help improve the quality of life to our youngsters who are at risk. And quite frankly, as first responders, Councilman, personally, it takes its toll after a while of responding to a lot of these incidents. Although professionally we are always going to do the best job and we're going to do it as quickly as we can, it personally begins to take its toll. So Chief Berry recognizes that we can do more. And so his charge is making himself available, his fire stations available to look at how we could be a part of this city's plan to address the gang violence and any other safety issues toward members in the community and the firefighters that respond.
I have a handful of questions and been joined by my colleague Janice Hahn to clarify and help understand what your program is and how we should work with this program. I asked you earlier about some of the youth that you're working with or young adults that you're working with may be gang involved or what have you. We described earlier about how it actually is an alternative to other activities, and when they do get engaged in one of your programs, it's expected that they're not going to be engaged in negative activities in the community with their time and with their energy. That being said, it's unfair because Akil is much more familiar with the, I think he's probably going to have to be the one to answer this question. We now have in the city of Los Angeles, for the first time in the entire country, we have an intervention definition and an intervention model, and actually explaining what intervention is in the first prong and the second prong, and if you're going to be considered to do intervention work, you have to be able to identify and say this and this and this is what we do. And if you don't find your activity on that model, then with all due respect, you're a prevention program, likely, and not an intervention program. So of the various programs that you described today, how many of those programs can be considered an element of intervention?
Again, a very good question, Council Member. Their affiliation with Maximum Force Enterprises, all of those intervention, all of those programs are intervention. I think when you look at the existing Explorer program that the fire department has, those are prevention programs. Okay, and again, I applaud Chief Berry's vision because he understood that, and that's why he contacted us to create this relationship. So we're trying to absorb the best of both worlds. I would say as the fire department modifies its Explorer Scout program in selected geographical areas, then you will be developing more of an intervention, but it would only be in those targeted areas that deal with that Pacific violence in that community. But from our perspective, all of our programs, Build, Firm, Upfront, those are specifically intervention, and they're specifically hardcore intervention programs.
Now, that being the case, you said that they are intervention based on prong one or prong two?
They're, you tested me. They're intervention.
It sounds to me as though they're more prong two because they're not dealing with going out and pulling the person out of a situation. They're inviting them to move away from gangs and to get a job, to get skills, to stay in school, things of that nature.
Yeah,
Which, to me, prong 2 more describes how you get somebody, once they've decided that's not my lifestyle that I want to have, but what are my alternatives? How do I grow into being marketable to get a job? How do I grow away from that and find legitimate employment rather than depending on illegitimate employment, things of that nature, to sustain myself?
Well, let me try to clarify that for you, Council Member. The way it works with us, all the kids in our program are in gangs, and they have been targeted specifically to come into our program. And because of the intervention work that my operation does, we deal with their mothers, we deal with their brothers, we deal with their sisters, because we're out in the street. A lot of these individuals that end up in my class, I've seen them and I've interfaced with their mothers, their fathers, their brothers, the gang sets. So this program, or the programs we have put in place, are the end results of a ongoing interaction. What we try to do within those programs is to create a resource mechanism, and one of the first things is to provide structure and order and discipline for those young adults who have been in those gang environments. So again, those are not your average youth that are just going to school. They have been either targeted by the social worker, by the probation officer, or by the police officer, and we have relationships with all these individuals, and that's why they specifically bring them to our program, because they know the historical success of that program. So what you see in those slides, that's an end result of putting them in structure. But we have interfaced with, like I said, a multitude of agencies to get them the help, et cetera. And the fact that we deal with the actual gang sets, we are interfacing with them. I mean, we have a parent program. Parents have to come to the Parent Build program twice a month, and we bring them in the program. We actually go into their houses, into their communities, and bring them to the program, specifically to get to the interfacing of making sure that we are involving the parents. We're involving the whole exterior structure in which that child operates. You can't have that child in for an hour or 2 hours in a specific disciplined structure and think you're going to put something on board. If you don't deal with the whole exterior environment in which that child is dealing in, you're going to be useless in terms of trying to change that child, Council Member.
Okay. My next question, well, what I'd like to ask of the department, for the sake of the city and also for the sake of us being able to be of greater assistance in the future, is what we're doing in the city is we are making sure that we identify and define. I know it's bureaucratic, but we have to do this, because if we're going to engage the people's tax dollars, we need to be able to honestly tell them, this is what we're funding, this is why we're funding them, and they are successful, and here's the proof. So what we need to do is we need you to look at the intervention model that is now in print and should have been disseminated to every department that deals with youth and or juvenile justice issues out in the community. Look through it, identify yourself in it or not, and decide how you would like to report back to us and tell us these are the elements that we provide that are on this intervention model. Therefore, we do a portion of, for example, prong 1, and we do a portion of prong 2, and each one of our programs might do a little or less. One of the programs might only do prong 2. One of our programs really only does prong 1. You follow what I'm saying? So yes, we need that feedback from you, and luckily for you, you have Akil, who's been involved in creating that model with you. So we need that report back to the committee. In addition to that, right now, it appears that the City of Los Angeles, and the paradigm shift that we have of moving all youth gang programs over to the mayor's office, what do we do with your program? Do we do anything at all? Do we just acknowledge you and wave at you? Do you stay completely within the structure you have right now? Do you report now to the mayor's office to some degree, formally? We have to figure that out. Yours is somewhat unique in the sense that you are inherently part of a department. We have 2,000 hours a year in one of your programs that you provide an in-kind to the program, and you enlist about $100,000 in funds. So now, whether we like it or not, we need to identify where you belong. Without question, you need to continue to do what you do. So please understand that.
Yes, sir.
But we as an organization need to understand how we need to explain to the public when we're scrutinized by the public why this program is supported by the city, what it does, why we need to keep it, and we are going to keep it going, and hopefully grow it as well. Yes.
Yeah, you know, I think LAFD has a great this Explorer program. In fact, I think a lot of people don't know that you have this Explorer program. I think most people associate the police department with the Explorers. In fact, I was kind of briefed on this when I went and met with UFLAC last year about our whole idea of gang prevention and intervention. So I think it's a great program. Do you feel like your ability to reach young people is dependent on your funding? In other words, is your program only as big as the dollars will allow, or could you do more with more money?
Yes, ma'am. My name is Greg Rayner. Thank you very much for letting me answer your question. I'm currently the Youth Development Program Coordinator for the department. I do feel in my heart, because I'm on the front line of our youth programs, both the Explore program and the Fire program that's being run right now at LA Harbor College, you understand that
Right.
Financially, because of our environment today, funds are very limited.
Right.
And when we talk about, potentially reducing the service to the community when it comes to the fire service and paramedics,
Right.
obviously the programs that we have that don't go towards that, like youth development program,
Right.
are on the front line to be
Right.
potentially impacted very quickly.
Right.
So I would suggest to you that at this time, obviously, we can utilize the support. We're only as good as the number of volunteers that I can try and acquire within our department.
Right.
Willing to.
The money spent is not for staffing, it's more for the equipment.
Yes, ma'am, it is. Our $100,000 line item in 0708 is specifically for equipment to help serve our youth. Number of the equipment items, obviously, we have at-risk youth. In order for them to participate safely in our programs, they have to have things
Right.
like a uniform,
Right.
safety boots, work gloves,
Right.
goggles. They can't afford it,
Right.
so we do provide it for them so
What
they
is-
can participate.
What does HRDC funds mean?
Our funds are earmarked as Human Relations Development Committee funds. So that $100,000 is a part of.
Within your department?
Yes, ma'am, is part of the HRDC funds. So that money, if it's not spent, is returned to the general fund as a portion of our HRDC funds. Because of the impact recently with the budget, those funds were identified as potentially being able to be returned. So we're kind of in a transition and a crossroad right now, budgetarily. But obviously, funding for our programs is very important to us.
And who
Can't do it without the funds.
and who decides that you get 100,000?
It's a portion of our fire department budget that goes through
Just-
Fire Commission.
Okay, but is that what you sort of submit every year, or you ask for?
I've been doing this for
or-
about 8 months. It's my idea that historically, for the last several years, it's been about $100,000. My goal this year was to grow our program by 10%. I challenged each one of our adult leaders, let's grow this program. I'll grow it by Explore post, by the numbers of posts we do have.
Yeah.
If you grow it by the members and the youth that are participating. But yes, the funds are a portion of the fire department budget.
And I was curious about the Banning High School program. It just basically says alumni of Banning High who are now members of LAFD teach, motivate, inspire, and the students visit your facilities and volunteer at Fire Academy graduations.
Yes, ma'am. The program's run and coordinated by Leo Lopez, who's a member of our department that you may have met in the past. Leo has been working there for quite a long time as alumni of Banning High School, has a group of firefighters and paramedics that return to Banning in conjunction with their physical education program. Youth in the high school are identified as at-risk or troubled
Right.
youth. They're channeled towards Leo and his program,
I
and
see.
during the physical education period, he provides a program for them.
I
And is
see.
able to make inroads with, obviously,
I see.
identified at-risk youth within the school. So it's done in conjunction with the LA Unified School District at the behest of Banning High School staff.
And what's the relationship between LAFD and our Aztec firefighters?
Right now, we do have a relationship with Aztec Firefighters, and it's my understanding, I spoke with them in the back today, that they have been, and I am aware of this, they have been providing an awful lot of volunteer service to support our fire department. They do an awful lot of maintenance for us at our regional training center, Frank Hutchins Memorial Training Center. At this time, they're not identified as a true Los Angeles Fire Department Explorer post. I'd love to have them, but obviously they're affiliated with U.S. Forest Service and their leaders. Great opportunity for us to work with our regional partners,
Right.
because a lot of us are doing very similar
Right.
things. In fact, most of us are working with an organization called Learning for Life as an umbrella organization to exploring, and most of us utilize that organization because they do have a monopoly in exploring. So.
Yeah. Well, again, the first time I really got to understanding your Explorer program, I think it is so important to this idea of prevention and really getting these kids who we know are at risk and channeling them into something before they get recruited to join a gang. And that's what I see you doing. I'd really like to see you get more funding. And I think, Tony, they would certainly be eligible to be funded by the $30 million if passed by the voters. This would be a program that I think would
I
make
think it's a poster program.
I do too. I think it is a poster program. And these are the kind of things we need to highlight more, which is why it's great that you're doing this in the committee, because again, people like to paint all of us with one brush. You know, our programs don't work, your funding programs that don't work. These programs do work. They absolutely do work. They've never been funded to the level that I would like to see, because we're still reaching just such a small percentage of our kids at risk, and the only limitation is money. If we had more money, you could expand all these programs, we could reach more kids, and really get a shot at ending gang violence.
There's been about $1 million in reports over the last 2.5 years funded and or completed within the city of Los Angeles. Do you remember being interviewed by the Advancement Project, perhaps maybe about 18 months ago, over a year ago?
Sir, that was before my time as a coordinator. I was never interviewed.
Yes, we have in the past had interviews with the Advancement Project, which is ran by Connie Rice and her organization, and provided her with information such as this with regard to the youth development programs that we have, and then also our interest and desire to be a part of what the vision is of the Advancement Project with regard to gang intervention and prevention.
Mm-hmm. And how about the controller just completed a report earlier this year, which they did interviews from late last summer through the end of '07. Do you remember being interviewed by the controller's people?
There's a possibility that my predecessor, Chief Darren Palacios, was interviewed. I wasn't, but he most likely was.
Okay, they interview you, Akil?
Yes, they did. But let me say, Council Member, the one uniqueness about this relationship is that it's clear the chief has hired my company, Maximum Force Enterprise. He didn't hire me as Inspector Bashir from the fire department. So we work separately in that funding arena. And the other thing is, for the sake of not having a conflict of interest, it was imperative that we did it that way. To answer one of your earlier questions, I'm going to be brief. If you look on the last page of this actual report, when you talked about modeling, the bill report, where you see the class we just graduated, the concept is, and where our resources are needed for us, the concept is, because we do train the trainer as well as instructorships, we develop academies, we put models in place, is to certify, just like you see in that picture, interventionists who can go out and who can set up the actual model in these targeted areas. So we got a duplication process that's on board to where it doesn't just take me specifically or the members of my company. The goal of it is to certify these people, and if you look at that group of people, this was the first time ever that there was a joint fire department, Maximum Force Enterprises, police department certification process to create a liaison group of individuals that will act just as that, liaison entities that work within these three departments. They will now be able to go out and educate and train others under their supervision, which again will broaden this whole perspective. And so we'll be able to look at these targeted communities and put individuals in these targeted communities where it's not depleting the 1 or 2 or 3 individuals that are doing this work, as a connection with the fire department, being the fact that the fire department is being trained in the exact same format, so now they'll open up those fire stations to some degree and be able to engage those high-risk youth because they're going to be trained in the culture and the behavioral operational patterns of how gang membership and high-risk youth membership operates. So again, it's broadening the whole perspective and creating a liaison that would be beneficial for the society in general.
Now, some of this training, can it be expanded to train gang intervention workers?
As you well know, my company has trained most of the gang interventionists in the city, actually in the nation. That's what we're known for. And yes, we have a 16-week training academy that is a certifiable academy that certifies up to 9 levels. We're currently working with the Advancement Project in their structure, as well as a few other entities. But yes, we've been doing that for years. It is a training academy.
Let me, if I may, Councilman, just add a little bit to what Akil is saying. With regard to the pilot program that he's referring to, which we're calling First Responder Street Survival Training, Phase 1 was completed that involved up to 20 gang interventionists, as well as the fire department and the police department, under the umbrella of Maximum Force providing the training. The second phase of that pilot training will occur in May over a 3-day period of time. It will target 2 battalions in Los Angeles, Battalion 13, which is primarily South Los Angeles and Watts community, and Battalion 18, which is in the Crenshaw, Baldwin Hills area. There's been a lot of activity in those 2 communities, as well as others, with regard to the level of violence that we respond to on a daily basis as firefighters. And so Phase 2 will consist of training specific to the first responders, but will include Maximum Force providing the training to the firefighters with LAPD and the gang interventionist assistance. So what you have is this collective of individuals and agencies that are all interested in one thing: to provide quality service as quickly, as safely as we can. And we believe, Chief Berry believes, that this is an opportunity, and it's certainly something that we believe has not occurred and does not occur in any other city in the United States. So we're watching it carefully, and we certainly would invite you or members of your staff, if they would like to sit in on that training, please, we can make that available to you.
Thank you. And so part of the objective of the fire department under Chief Berry is to be inclusive of the community.
Yes, sir.
And not to judge what part of the community you're in, or not to judge whether or not somebody's wearing baggy pants, or whether somebody's wearing a suit, or whether somebody's driving a fancy car, or somebody's waiting for the bus stop. What you're saying is you see all of the people that you serve as equals, and they're all welcome to participate and to interact with your department in a positive manner.
Absolutely, sir. And I would also like to say that that is a priority, or one of the priorities for the fire chief with regard to our service delivery system, that we maintain that non-judgmental attitude up front.
Okay, thank you. Well, one of the things, again, dealing with the way in which the city wants to shift gears, what we need to make sure that I know you're doing it to a certain degree, but we need to make sure that we interact more often and talk about how you will go ahead and record your outcomes. Remind us what communities you'd like to serve, what communities you're limited to serving because of funding and because of the fact that you're not expanded throughout the city, mainly because of financial resources. But keep reminding us who you're capable of serving and you'd like to reach out and serve. Yet at the same time, let us know who you're serving, how you're serving them, and what the results are, the success rates, or what have you. One of the things that's kind of difficult to get, but perhaps you could do it on an anonymous basis when you do get parents to come in, for them to go ahead and fill out, perhaps anonymously, what is your hourly wage? Are you even working? Are you part-time, full-time, et cetera? We need to know for grant purposes, potential grant purposes in the future, which population you're actually serving. And if we have some semblance of recording of that, then we can actually apply that potential funds to the degree of $100,000 or $400,000 or $1 million a year in potential grants that come out of either the state or the federal government, or some other, private granting agency. Yes.
From the fire department's perspective right now with youth development programs, obviously, we don't discriminate based on race, gender, sex, or economic status. In fact, we don't care about your ethnicity, really. All we want to do is be able to serve the youth.
And
in a
that's what I'm
positive-
saying, perhaps-
Positive impact, and we haven't collected that information in the past, so, just upfront knowing that.
But unfortunately, when it comes to certain funding sources, some of them want to know if we have not, most of the time it's not 100% accurate, but we have to give them some honest answer as to whether or not we can identify truthfully who we are currently serving. And if they were to give us funds and we wanted to expand, and they said, well, as long as you expand into those communities to continue to serve that population, here's $300,000, or here's $1 million over 3 years. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So it only helps you with your potential capacity of resources. If you don't have that information, then we're at the whim of us deciding whether or not we're going to fund it directly with general fund dollars or what have you, instead of being able to broaden the ability to get more resources, because they're looking to fund organizations like you, but they're not willing to do it unless they get some correspondence saying this is who we are serving. It's not so much a certified, but under penalty of perjury, based on the information we gather. And the vast majority of people who participate have told us this is what their income is, this is what their ethnicity is, or what have you. We don't need names attached to those incomes and those ethnicities or what have you. Certain organizations say, if that's the population you're serving, we want to give you money. But if we can't tell them, and we can just tell them anecdotally, that anecdotal information might not be good enough for us to get those dollars.
Yes, sir.
So again, I'm trying to make sure that you understand is you decide how and if you feel you're able to do that. I think you can, but try to be creative in trying to make sure that you don't scare away your potential constituents, and at the same time have them help you help them enhance yourself to position yourself for greater funds. Yes.
I just want to say one last thing on the training academy. As you well know, we're also working with your office under the leadership of Mike and Eduardo in developing that training intervention instruction also. So just wanted to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you pointing that out. You know that, I know that, but everybody listening doesn't know that. Thank you. Okay. Any more points you'd like to make before we invite the public to speak?
No, we just wanted to thank you for inviting us, and we're committed to remain with this whole movement, and thank you very much, sir.
We appreciate you.
I think that you're going to be here to stay as far as your programs go, and I hope and pray that you grow.
Thanks, man.
And if everything goes well toward the end of this year with the leadership of Janice Hahn and the support of us, cast of characters, we hopefully will have more funds, and certainly you'll be on the top of the list.
Absolutely.
Once we get the documentation and all that stuff, again, we've said it 1,000,000 times, we're not going to do things the way we did in the past. We like you, here's the funding. No. We hear what you're doing, you
Right.
document, you forward to us, we
Right.
categorize you.
Right.
Unfortunately, bureaucratically, we categorize you, et cetera. We know what you do. We're funding you because you do exactly this. We want you to enhance that and serve more people.
Right.
So that being the case, and I think you're going to be able to do that over the coming months, hopefully we'll see a culmination of more dollars and your documentation, and then we'll see you grow. Okay?
Sir, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We have a public comment card filled out for this item. We have William Cervera. You're lucky I didn't think that was an S. I'd be cerveza. But it's a little early.
Not every time.
It's 11:30.
Somebody's drinking this time of day, somewhere in the world.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. For the Los Angeles Fire Department, it's a great opportunity to be here. I've noticed a lot of the things that they've been doing, Aztec Rising has been doing, and it would be a great asset if we can team up with them. One of the things I've noticed is they said from 14 to 20, but there's also people that have been on parole. And I understand with the way the hiring process is for the LA City, they won't be able to get picked up that way, but maybe we can work something out where they can send the people like that with us, with the U.S. Forest Service. We'll pick them up if they've been on parole, if they do have a felony. You know, the only 3 things that the Forest Service will not pick you up for is for arson, murder, and rape. So it still gives a lot of opportunities to get these inner city people out of the inner city, and that way they can continue to grow. The Aztecs have been currently involved in the CERT program, which is put on by the Los Angeles City Fire Department. The CERT is the Community Emergency Response Team. They also went to the first aid and CPR class. I've noticed that they were speaking also about the Explorers and the we have a junior Aztec program. And a lot of the people would love to go into the city fire department. So maybe we could work something out where they're allowed to go with them that want to go into the fire department and vice versa. We do have a lot of people that were in gang members and also not gang members. They're at-risk people. They were speaking also about the Crew 3. That's something that we would love to be involved in. We have right now 31 people at the academy. And the reason why I say people is because we also have women involved, and they're at the academy getting red carded for the U.S. Forest Service.
Women are people too.
Well, I'm just saying, that's the reason why I
Not just
said instead
men.
of just men.
Kidding.
Sorry. They're actually getting red.
With Janice around, you walk right into that one.
They're actually getting red carded so they could be actually out on the fire line. And a lot of the crew and also the Aztecs, right now we have the Aztecs Fuels crew where they're working with Eric Garcetti.
Continue, go ahead.
They're working with Eric Garcetti, and they're doing some hazardous removal. They worked in Elysian Park, the Red Cart, the Alley River. They had a lot of homeless encampment, and they were doing a lot of drugs. So we actually did the brush clearance at Elysian Park. I believe they said it was 20 years since they've done it, so they had a lot of fuel buildup.
Wow.
So we're actually giving these gentlemen some skills to have, and they're working with the public. They're actually getting to do some public relations, different forms, things that they've never really been able to do. One of the things I understand, funding is very difficult. So one of the things that I would like to see is maybe we can do volunteer time where we're doing something for the city, and maybe they can put on a class to get these gentlemen certified. We have, I believe, about maybe 15 to 20 people that would love to go to the city and that they don't have anything on the record. But for the people that do have something on the record, get them involved in a brush clearance or going doing the wildland fire. We have, right now we're working on a couple deals, and we just purchased our own line gear. So right now we have a contact to get our own Nomex. So that way it won't have to necessarily come out of the budget, because I know how tight the budget is. If there's help, that'd be great, but if there's not, then we're trying to get out there and expose these guys so they can get, more pride into the city. Yesterday, we were actually involved with the LA City Park Rangers, and they had a refresher course, so we were able to send about 10 of our guys over there to get the refresher and being involved. At the Ernest Depp Center, we actually did a brush clearance for them. We're cleaning this, they need to get it done, and maybe they could give us a little bit of a class and get these guys to get the resumes built up so they can apply for other organizations or other areas and stay off the streets. A lot of the guys that I have right now with me have either been on parole or they've been in jail or gang members. And like they said, as long as you could keep them busy and working, it's a gain for everybody. They're not on the streets causing problems. They're spending money because that's what they're making. They're so tired that they just go home. And our training program actually has been Monday nights. They've been involved in the CERT program. On Wednesdays from 4 to about 10 o'clock, they're training. We go for a hike. We take the men and women with weight vests, tools, so they know how to hike with them. On Saturdays, we start about 7 a.m. and we don't end till about 12 o'clock. We do camping events, so that way I teach them the S130, the S190, teach them the basic tools, how to hold them, sharpen them, maintenance them. We went to a beach trip. We did a beach run, and then we do a barbecue afterwards so we could get a camaraderie. Currently, we have people either from MS, 18th Street, V&E, Hazard, the Avenues. We have from Echo Park, and none of them have even had a conflict with each other. They all go in there and help each other.
Really?
So hold on a second. So you have all those people who are affiliated with different gangs. So you have like 8 different sites around the city or what have you, or do you have them all in one place?
We all have them in one place. We all meet out of Lincoln Heights.
What, you mean they actually stand next to each other?
Yes, sir. Even in the street, we have them.
Do they even talk to each other?
They talk to each other, even share food with each other, help them up the hill with each other, and they're actually involved with each other.
I hope the LA Times and the Daily News is listening, because I don't think they believe you. I don't think they believe that actually could happen.
It does all the time. I actually have people right here in the room that are in different gangs, or affiliated, I should say.
We're not going to ask your name or anything.
No.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, they were affiliated because they're not active, but the way the gang thing is. So
yeah.
it's,
Sure.
but
Wow.
they're actually, we had people that
Impressive.
it was during the Avenues when they had that shootout a couple of weeks ago, where I believe it was Drew Street and the Avenues. We actually had the same people in our crew, and they said that if they were not with the crew, they might have been involved in it. The same time, right after, they're sharing food with each other, helping each other up the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
We take them out of that whole light, and they forget where they're at, and then they tell us, they want to move away from that gang environment, but they're not able to get a job. So we're helping them get
Right.
that job. You know, we're helping them. They went to the Dodger job fair. There's only
cool.
one company that was actually able to take them because the first couple questions is, are you a felon? Have you been on
Right.
probation or something? So it automatically excludes them. We're the only ones being able to help them. So not only are we doing re-intervention, intervention, and prevention, because some of the people are living in the cities, they're actually trying to stay away from it, and we're helping them. So we're doing a lot of things, but we want to be able to,
Now, your organization, the best thing you could take away from this committee is your organization needs to understand that you need to start getting ready to fill out RFPs that just came out for prevention and an RFQ that we're going to be developing along with the mayor's office for intervention. And that's the next round of funding in the city.
okay.
Again, it's not because we like you, it's not because we known you've been around for a while. We're going to need everybody, every organization to start documenting, and then whether they like it or not, they need to categorize themselves as to what monies they're applying for. And just because you apply for prevention doesn't mean you can't apply for intervention. Just because you apply for intervention prong 1 doesn't mean you can't apply for prong 2. You might be qualified for all of them, and you might be very well qualified for all of them. And you may get funding through all categories. But the bottom line is you need to document that as an organization, and you need to be ready to fill out that RFP process and RFQ process in order to get funding in the coming 6 months.
Okay. For that, maybe there's a way afterwards I could get your card and you could help me on that, because
Sure.
that way I...
Michael is in charge of that in my office, and he'll
Okay.
definitely help you do that.
I know that we're actually under the LA bridges, so I'm not sure if they've already applied, but this program for the Aztecs, I think, should be a separate entity because of the fact of what we do. They actually refer them to us, we get them the jobs, the training, but also at the same time, there's a lot of people that would love to go to the city. So I know this coming, not tomorrow, but this coming Friday, the Aztec Fire Crew is going to actually be at the Hodgkin Center doing some clearance and work. So they could get that name, they could get that trust with us, and they know that, you know, we're very
Cool.
serious about this and we want to be involved every step. If there's a city fire that's on the brush side, that's what we're trained to do. We want to just be utilized. I understand that we can't be on the payroll,
Right.
but we would love just to even volunteer. We could put that on their application, so when they
Right.
want to go to the fire academy, they have
They have
experience.
Excellent. Very good.
Thank you. And also, they heard you when you said that you want a much more formal relationship between Aztecs Rising and the fire department.
Yes.
So you'll definitely incur that soon.
Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I want everybody who's here from Aztec Rising to stand, please.
Awesome.
I want to congratulate all of you for being part of the program and remind you that sometimes it looks like you're hitting a dead end or something like that. Trust me, as long as you stick with the program, you're not going to hit a dead end for long. There will be light at the end of the tunnel. You will have opportunities. Doors will open for you. We are changing things in this city. I don't know what the county's doing. I hope and pray that they're doing the same thing, or the state of California. But in this city of a population of 4 million people, we are on the rise as far as increasing, being effective, reaching out to people like you, working with you, and also welcoming you to do greater and better things with yourselves. Is there any women in the group?
Yes.
All right.
Can you please come forward?
Girls roll.
There's roughly about 4 other ladies, but they're in the academy right now.
Okay. All right. Have a seat. Pull the chair. How do you feel being a minority and a minority? You can sit down now. Thank you. Pull the microphone up.
Excuse me?
How do you feel being a minority and a minority? First of all, you're a woman in firefighting, and then also you find yourself surrounded with mostly men. How does it feel?
Well, actually, as I kind of feel pretty good about myself. You know, I feel I give my part. I try to keep up with men, and I feel really good about myself.
What made you decide to get involved in the program?
Physical. I love to be physical. I can't sit down all day.
We went to the right place.
Yes. You know, I've done chainsaw work. You know, I love it.
Chainsaw.
Beautifying, you know, our communities. You know, helping out. It's awesome.
Do you have a mom or dad?
I do have mom and dad. Yes.
How do they feel about what you're doing?
Well, my mother she's a paranoid schizophrenic,
Okay.
and Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
It's okay.
But,
No need to be nervous.
My dad passed away when I was 13, and
So you're guiding yourself mainly?
Yeah,
You're having to,
mainly.
pull yourself forward mainly with your leadership and friends and other family members?
Yes,
How do your friends and family feel about what you're doing?
they're excited. They see a good thing in me, and actually my husband, he got picked up with the U.S. Forestry, and our life is going pretty good now.
Do you have kids?
Yes, I have 2 children.
Oh, really?
Wow.
Oh, wow. What do they
I'm
think about
28
what you're
years
doing?
old.
Yeah,
Excuse
you
me?
look like you're 20, but go ahead. You have 2 kids.
Yes, I do.
How do they feel about what you're doing?
My son, he's excited. He's excited. He's like, "Mama, you're a firefighter. Mama,
That's
you
cool.
too." Yeah, and I have a 1-year-old too.
That's cool.
And
If it wasn't for this program, what do you think you'd be doing? What alternatives do you think you would have attracted yourself to, or where do you think you'd be?
wow. Well, that's kind of hard. I'll probably be at home with my children, probably, in the system,
Mhm.
welfare system.
Some kind of support from the
some
government
kind
or
of
something?
Support, and probably not making it like we are now,
Would you feel as good about yourself doing that
No.
than you do now?
No. I'm excited about myself. I love to shine, and here I am able to shine.
That's great. That's great.
Is there another period in your life where you felt like this? You described yourself as feeling good about yourself, positive about yourself. Was there another period in your life where you felt like this, to this level?
No, to be honest, no. No, every day was a struggle. Every day. And
Well, it's not like you're not struggling at all, right? And it's still
No,
a struggle, but
it's
you have
still a
hope, you
struggle.
have
Yes, but
higher
there's always-
expectations, you know that there's more out there for you. I need to ask you
now
this
I
question.
know there's better opportunities for me, yes.
Exactly. There's one thing that we tell young people all the time, and I need to ask you this question. We tell people all the time, it's up to you,
Right.
okay? Right now, do you feel like it's up to you, your success?
Yes.
Did you feel like it was up to you before when you were younger, when it was a different time, a different place?
No, I kind of felt hopeless, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Good. Well, good for you. Good for you. I mean, you've taken the step by yourself and with a lot of help, and I really applaud your courage. Really, it's hard to be a mother.
Yes.
That's very difficult. But then to put yourself into this environment with the firefighters is really very commendable. And I really, you'll be quite a role model to a lot of other women. You probably don't even know that right now, but there will be a lot of other young girls and women who would look at you and find a little bit of hope for their own lives.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you for sharing these personal questions and answers with us. I think it's very, very important. This committee is recorded. Please don't lose the tapes, you guys. This is recorded, so this is part of the history of Los Angeles, your testimony here today, and it's important to the people who are making policy in the city that you tell us what you've been through, what you're going through, and what this means to you. And also, young men, I'm sure that a lot of you share a lot of what she just said, except for the motherhood part. But
You'll
again,
never know.
yeah, lucky you. So congratulations to all of you once again, and thank you so much for your testimony.
You were also saying about, earlier I was sharing that to show maybe the people that have made it. Is that something that we should present to you as well? Because we do have a lot of, we do
Absolutely.
have several other,
Thank you for reminding us.
Yeah.
we do have other females and males that have.
You better believe it. You
Yeah.
better believe it, because the thing is, you're going to be competing with other good things. They might not do fire stuff. They might do poetry. They might not be doing this. They make posters or Homeboy Industries or what have you. When I say you're competing, what I'm saying is it's not like you're competing like there's a winner and a loser, but the bottom line is everybody's providing something different. Everybody's providing something, but the common denominator, the commonality in that is you're serving the same issues. You're serving the same, we need to bring hope and expectation, self-expectation and self-hope to people like the people you serve, and everybody does it a little differently. And if they present themselves historically better than you did, and then tell us what they're doing today, and you don't have the full package of telling us where you've been, who you are as an organization, what you're doing, and what your potential is, then at the same time, you may get, X amount of money to continue to do what you're doing, but another program might get 3 times as much because they had a better package of explaining what they're doing.
Okay.
And also at the same time, we're going to try to make it fair in the sense that there are organizations, in my opinion, who are great storytellers. They talk about their organization better than anybody else, and then they get funded, and then they go to an organization like you and want to subcontract you to do what they told us they were going to do. I'm going to be looking out for organizations like that, and when I find out they do that, I'm going to be looking to take the money away from them that they wanted to subcontract with you and then give it directly to you. Okay? But I don't want to do that. I want you to get the money directly, your organization to get the money directly first.
Yes, right now, the only reason why we can't expand anymore is because of the funding.
Right.
And if we could get situations, example, like we work with the U.S. Forest Service, but at one time we can only send 18 people out on our fire rotation, where we have maybe roughly about another 20 that still want to be involved in something else, and that's where we want to utilize the parks and also the LA City Fire, since we're based out of LA.
And I recommend to you that you get a litany of letters from all the organizations that you're working with and that like you and that have been dependent on you, and you've been sending bodies over to help them out or what have you. You need to get all the letters you can from all the individuals and organizations who can sign on a dotted line and say, I know who they are. This is what we see them do. We find value in what they do. Without them, we wouldn't be where we're at. You get what I'm saying? And also, it doesn't hurt to have testimony from some of the people that you've served.
Okay.
Okay?
Good
Right.
idea.
Thank you very much.
Thank you
Okay,
very much.
thank you. Okay. Is anybody else here, any public comment cards on item number 1? Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 1 is now closed. We now move to item number 2. And again, items number 3 and 4 were put over to the May 1st hearing.
Item number 2, CAO and CLA to report in response to motion, Cardenas Parks, relative to the steps necessary to create a new city department for the management of all cities' youth development, gang prevention, and intervention programs.
We've obviously modified the heading of that motion to talk about, instead of department, it's within the mayor's office. So,
Okay. Tom Coltis, City Administrative Office. 2 weeks ago, we were instructed to come back to present the broad outline based
hold on one second. Understand, those of you who are here on a different item, you don't have to stay in the room. I know you probably have things to do or what have you. You're welcome to exit and enter the room as you please. We're now on item number 2. I think that a lot of you came for item number 1. You are welcome to stay. Don't get me wrong, but don't feel guilty about getting up. Just obviously, respectfully and quietly do what you need to do. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So 3 and 4 are,
Yeah, that's report from the mayor's office. They're going to do it this week.
okay.
Yes.
So the mayor's budget has been released. It does provide the detail of the mayor's proposal with regards to how the mayor's office envisions consolidating this activity within their office. In broad strokes, basically, the budget calls for the creation of 23 positions in the mayor's office, and that's approximately $1.4 million in salary costs, and then it envisions eliminating 4 positions in the Human Relations Commission department, and those positions would be eliminated. In addition, the Bridges program, which is in the Community Development Department, there are currently 12 positions authorized for that program. The mayor's budget proposal envisions taking 10 and eliminating 10 of the positions.
Wait, you said 12, taking 10?
12 in total are authorized for Bridges. Leave 2 in Community Development Department, which are the 2 accountants.
Okay.
Which makes sense because CDD has a
whole litany.
large and strong accounting group that can provide better structure vis-a-vis accounting. So that makes sense to leave it there, the accounting portion of what we will do with these programs. And then the other 10 positions are eliminated. And then 23 positions are created in the mayor's office.
Okay.
This is, so if you take the 10 and the 4, that's 14. That's 14 positions that are eliminated. as it relates to this particular program. In the scope of the rest of the budget, we have around 700 other positions that are eliminated as well. So this is not the only place in the budget where we will have staff disruptions.
Okay. All right. Now, is there any other information that was requested in this motion and obviously the intent of the motion, that you think you need more time that you could report back to this committee?
At the previous meeting,
It's a dynamic movement.
Exactly. At the previous meeting, we were coming back to do the basic presentation on what the mayor proposed, with the understanding that we would wait 30 days from that point to bring specifics as to the how and the what and the why. Not the why, but the how and the what. The specifics around where the staff is located and are they consolidated in one building? Are they kept in separate places? That's all to be determined as we move forward. And then within the next 30 days, we'll have council budget hearings, obviously, which this is the mayor's proposal. It doesn't automatically become the reality.
Yeah, actually, people don't realize that the mayor's proposal is something that can either be accepted as a document within the city council, or the city council could say, that was nice, Mr. Mayor, but we're going to start from scratch. Custom and practice is that the council does not start from scratch. They use that as the template for the beginning of the budget process. But a lot of people don't realize that the mayor doesn't introduce motions. He enacts, proposes, or what have you, but it's up to the council to accept that as an official document. But there's no reason why we shouldn't assume that this year in the budget process that we'll do anything different than what's been happening in custom and practice before, which is that's the template that the council is going to work off of in the budget process, correct?
That's correct.
That's the template, okay. So you have something to work from, but obviously it's a dynamic movement of moving parts. And so does it make any sense to have an update in the next 2 weeks, or do you think it's better that we wait for 30 days?
I would recommend that we wait the 30 days
30
to
days.
see how the budget process proceeds.
Now, if you say 30 days, it's going to be I'm going to expect a much longer presentation than today's.
Well, I would have a much longer presentation than today's, because
That's what I wanted to hear.
Because today is fundamentally, you have the mayor's proposal. We know what is proposed to go into the mayor's budget. We know where the resources are coming from. How that exactly works and how that plays out with regards to labor relations issues.
Exactly.
Those will play out over time.
But some of the fundamental mechanics of, for example, a body or 10 bodies or 20 bodies going from civil service to exempt or what have you, if in fact, unless they find some other mechanism in which to do that, those fundamentals are something that can be reported to this committee, right? Expect this. In the transition, this is what happens.
In terms of what is being proposed here, what's being proposed is the elimination of the positions and then the creation of new positions in the mayor's office. So what it represents in terms of the challenge is some of those positions are filled, some of them are vacant. The attempt would be to place everybody. I mean, this city has a pretty long-standing tradition of attempting to avoid layoffs to the maximum extent possible, and I would envision that after the budget is adopted, there will be an extensive process to attempt to place as many people as possible. And therefore, what I would envision happening is we will eliminate just for the sake of argument, let's assume it gets adopted exactly as it's proposed.
Sure.
If it gets adopted as it's proposed, the positions in the Community Development Department, the positions in the Human Relations Commission would be eliminated. We would make every effort to place those people within the rest of the city structure. Now, is it possible that one of them or two of them or all of them possibly may want to go to the mayor's office and work as exempt staff in the mayor's office? That's entirely a possibility. That could play out. I don't know that for a fact.
Okay. All right. And also, we need to also get a report on the matters that would be taken on in the mayor's office when it comes to the 13 million or the 20 million or the 1.4 million or what have you. What are the sources of those funds? And make sure that we don't have any mishaps as far as whether or not those funds can simply be utilized out of an elected office versus being utilized via program within department. Okay? Because some of that is grant funds, and that's the reason to delineate how much of that is grant funds, what are those grants, what are the purpose of those grants, what are the limitations, if any, of those grants, and then obviously the most flexible money is the general fund money. So we need to delineate how much of the identified dollars are general fund, grant, et cetera, and then that which is grant, we need to identify what those grants are and what the expectation is of the source of those funds.
In round numbers of the 20 million that's going to the mayor's office, it's 18.9 in general fund. So clearly we have the maximum flexibility with the vast majority of the money. 1.2 in grants. Most of the time, grants are received by the city of Los Angeles, so where they're administered has some flexibility within most grants. But with grants, and you got to look at the individual grant on a grant-by-grant basis, because you cannot make the blanket assumption that the city gets to be the administering entity.
Every grant is different.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, every grant is different, even if they come from the federal government, from the same department.
Exactly.
For some reason, they write it differently. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. So with that, we look forward to having this item in committee within the next 4 weeks, which puts us on or about the 20-something of May, which will be well toward the back end of the legislative process of the budget, which hopefully will
And we're
shed
hoping
a lot
for
more
a
light.
quick and expeditious consideration of the budget.
Of course. It's only $400 million we got to figure out how to cut. Okay. Any public comment items on item number 2? Nope. Seeing and hearing none, public comment on item number 2 is now closed. Anybody here for general public comment to this committee? I see no general public comment cards. Seeing and hearing none, general public comment is now closed. This committee is now adjourned. Thank you.